Scholar of the First Sin employs snap points into the movement. This means that there are only so many directions your character can walk at will.
And the thing is, like, you can turn a little bit if you find the sweet spot. Like that. That's the least I can turn it. That is dumb.
You can also turn a little bit if you just use the right stick on your controller. Seems like he considers the movement to be objectively bad just because he never even considered to turn the camera. I can turn any direction at will, so I would categorize his complaint as it's bad because it's different kind of argument and an unwillingness to adapt to minor changes.
I try to move a little bit to one side and the game snaps to 90 degrees. I manage to correct it, but this is incredibly frustrating.
I've never had that happen to me, and when testing it I can only get a 90-degree turn if I pull my stick to the left. Did he really move his stick just a little bit to one side? To me it looks like he blames the game for his own mistakes, but maybe it's also a controller issue or something that got patched out.
This is horrendous when considering exploration and platforming.
Dude, the controls are so dumb.
Platforming? Really? Has this ever happened to you? In DS1 I had more issues with platforming when using L3 for jumping, as I often accidentally input tiny changes. Even trying to run straight feels more shaky. To me, platforming in DS2 always felt more accurate, as I will run perfectly straight. I also always jump in the exact direction that I want to jump to. Whee! There is more platforming in DS2, but to me it always felt a lot more accurate than in DS1.
In this next jump I managed to reach the first increment from turning, but not the second one. The second may have allowed me to pass the jump. Had the controls allowed for 360 degrees, then the jump would have been possible.
How often do people really try to jump diagonally to the left instead of straight ahead? And I'm pretty sure that this rock is a dead end, or at least rather risky. The regular path is a lot easier.
Combined with the fact that as you turn you are pushed forward, means that you will be falling to your death often. If they don't, then it causes many issues.
Does turning even push you forward? This whole situation seems pretty staged to me, as he just ran towards the edge. He had momentum from running.
Damage increase in general is simply a change, but in context it can be extremely punishing.
He is again blaming the game for a situation he decided to willingly put himself into. First off, he is wearing heavy armor, but a higher equip load does increase your falling damage. Secondly, when you do need to jump down somewhere, you can just put on one or more of the many pieces of equipment that lower falling damage. You are supposed to adapt to the situation instead of just complaining how unfair it is that it hurts if you jump down somewhere while wearing 100 pounds of equipment. Even the hole in MauLer does not even deal any damage if you play as intended and wear equipment that reduces falling damage.
Just because I'm a cat?
There is a reason why the cat that sells 2 pieces of falling damage reducing equipment is right next to the hole. And at least it isn't like DS1 where you can die from walking down a slope and twisting your ankle.
Not over yet. They added this weird event that if the game detects that there is an obstacle between the player and a ladder they wish to climb, it will prevent them from reaching it until you clear the obstacle.
It might be a bit more annoying now, but at least you aren't phasing through enemies anymore.
This is something that we get to have in our Soulsborne games normally, but in Dark Souls 2 it doesn't always work.
What?
because the system doesn't always work properly. Unfortunately, this is yet another inconsistent or unfinished aspect to the game. When you're attempting an attack, your blade can veer off in different directions despite being engaged in lock-on. Somehow. Yes, this is yet another fundamental system that is inherently broken.
He presents a feature as a bug. It's called manual attack aiming, and anyone that wants to stand a chance with slow weapons in DS3 PvP will enable it. In DS2 it is always enabled for slow weapons, but I don't see how this makes it inherently broken. He just did not even try to learn how to play this game and instead just calls it broken.
And the workaround is directing it with your left analog stick.
Seems like he never realized that he could just let go off the left stick during an attack to let auto-aim take control. You can't move during an attack either way. This feature is not only great to catch rolls better than auto-aim does, it can also turn slow thrust attacks into semi-sweep attacks. It just adds a higher skill ceiling and lets you pull some tricks.
Backstabs are meant to trigger whenever you are standing at someone's back, right? As in, you are at their back and you hit the light attack and your character engages in an animation that if joined with the opponent, they will enter into the backstab animation.
He isn't standing directly behind him. He's standing a bit to the left of him. This is how the backstab range looks like. He was standing just a bit outside of it. He hit his shoulder. He was once again not behind the enemy. Pay attention to the direction her legs are facing. The animation turned her upper body to the left, but her direction vector was facing perpendicular to from where he was attacking. This is the same in any Souls game. Animations can make it look like their back is facing another direction. Here it looks like I'm still more on the front of him. And here it still counts as a riposte even though it looked more like I'm behind his back. This looks like a failed backstab, but that was just his torso being twisted by the animation.
Oh no, not this again. Bad backstab, but then good one.
He was standing on her side and not behind her.
You are facing their shoulder and the animation is activated and hitting them in front of their chest grants the back.
First off, the backstab range in DS1 had an even larger circular sector, so shoulder backstabs were always a thing in that game as well. Secondly, would he really prefer it if backstabs did not count if an enemy turned between the activation and confirmation?
That doesn't always happen in Dark Souls 2, and before you make any kind of mistake, what I am showing you right now is the times where it does not work.
This is a safeguard to prevent the chain backstabs that were so prevalent in DS1. The backstab range gets disabled for a short time when they get staggered or stand up. He presents it as objectively bad and broken, even though this is one of the many reasons why DS2 is considered to have the best PvP.
How is that not a backstab? Come on, game.
If we pay attention to the left arm, we can see that this Dark Dweller was just backstabbed. So this is again the mechanism that prevents chained backstabs. He presents it as broken, even though it works exactly as intended and just prevents players from cheesing the game. I don't want to sound condescending, but we have to acknowledge that MauLer presented a lot of his own skill issues and unwillingness to learn a slightly different movement system, as bugged and broken mechanics. For someone that clearly does not even understand how this game works, he is just too confident in his assertions that those are bugs. He did a lot of damage to the reputation of DS2 by falsely accusing lots of things of being broken just because he did not spend a second to try to understand them. Sure, the movement in this game is slightly different than Dark Souls 1 was, but that does not mean that it is inherently broken. It just means that you need to play it slightly differently. And if you do learn how to play this game, it does have a much higher skill ceiling than the other games, as there is a lot more depth to the mechanics. It just feels a lot more rewarding to good players, but feels frustrating to players that are unwilling to learn a few new things. And yeah, I only included this few night clip to show off some of my skills.